you got to understand the level of the spirit. Obviously, the spirit dwells within the vessel, aka the body. So when you understand the spirit, if you remember, like I was talking about, like the night, when you understand how this stuff go, the night sacrifice in chess is very vital, because that right there, it helps, advance the power of protecting the king. So you see, this is right here. It's called "From the In the Looking Glass" by Lewis Carroll. This right here is a very important thing, because when you understand the night sacrifice, the night sacrifice is very serious, because it represents the night, going into hell, versus like the thing. This is by Lewis Carroll, "In the Looking Glass," and it represents nothing but sending the night, through the punishments. Remember, I just read it about the night would come before the time of the great deliverance, the time of a great tribulation, the time of a great persecution of those who are written in the book of life, of the great deliverance. So you notice that, obviously, like I was talking about, "In the Looking Glass," you have it by Lewis Carroll. And when you understand the name Lewis, Lewis, like I said, when you translate praise the Lord, it becomes Lewis Eternal. Remember, I said the Lewis stone is the headstone that the Illuminati, the Masons, reject to use to build their pyramid. You know what I'm saying? So when you understand the whole theme of this right here with sending the night, into the persecution, because the ways, obviously, remember, we already know the situation that was going on with the record labels, the whole lifestyle of Michael Jackson as a child and things of that nature. All of that stuff is real, man. You feel what I'm saying? This stuff is real. And that's what the whole thing represents. In order to advance the king, you have the night sacrifice. That's one of the most prominent, themes to do in the game of chess, to protect the king. You feel what I'm saying? This stuff is real, man. This is a real spiritual warfare that we're living in. You feel? I'm getting into some songs in a minute as well to explain my point even further. But when you understand this, like I was talking about it earlier, you have 15. Remember, I said you have 16 pieces in chess. Remember, when I was talking about that, each side got 16 pieces in chess, because that represents the whole theme, to obtain the earth, obtain the square, the four corners of the earth. So hint the whole theme, as you have you got the 15 archangels, and then you got the Messiah, aka the King, making that 16. You feel what I'm saying? And on the other side, you obviously got what, Lucifer. Then you have his 15, in his army. You know what I mean? On that level, you get where I'm going with this. This stuff is real. So this is why Michael Jackson was the knight. And remember, when Tupac really blew up on the scene with Juice, what was his name on there? Whose name was Bishop. Remember that. And remember, on the movie, Q was the one who brought him down. Remember, what was the first thing Bishop did? He killed Khalil Cain. You know what I mean? Remember, he killed the actor Khalil Cain. Hint the name Khalil don't mean nothing but friend, and Cain represents nothing but the rod of the Messiah. So hint that whole thing with the bishop, taking off the knocking off the Khalil Cain. You get what I'm saying? And when you look at it, when you understand the bishop, which is a very serious theme, and that all that represents is nothing but the high priest. You get what I'm saying? The whole theme of the bishop represents nothing but the whole theme of the high priest alongside the king and queen. It's the two closest pieces. You feel what I'm saying? So, it's the closest piece to the king and queen. So when you understand how all this stuff works, everything just comes together. That's why Q had to be the one to knock him off the building. Remember when he killed Pac, what did he do? Remember, he knocked him off the building. Remember that? Knocked him off the roof and sent him into darkness. So you remember how all of this stuff comes together, because remember, as it's written, that Lucifer will be brought down from the top of the pyramid, from the top of the altar, and he shall be casted down into hell. You feel what I'm saying? He should be casted down into the lake of fire. So you see how all of this stuff comes together, because when you understand what the Q represents nothing but the whole thing, of reaching the inner circle, reaching the inner you. You know what I mean? You see how you got the line going inside of the circle.